Have you ever tried to correct someone gently, and they looked at you and said, "That's just who I am"? Not with reflection, not with humility, but with finality, like a door slamming shut. And suddenly you're the problem. For expecting growth, let's be honest. Most people don't say, "That's just who I am," when they're kind. They don't say it when they're disciplined. They don't say it when they're patient. They say it when they don't want to change something ugly. "I'm just blunt. I'm just short-tempered. I'm just like this." No, you are protecting a habit. There's a difference between identity and behavior. Identity is your values. Behavior is your choices. But some people confuse the two. They fuse their flaws into their identity so tightly that asking them to improve feels like attacking who they are. So instead of evolving, they defend. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When someone says, "This is just me," what they often mean is, "I don't want to do the uncomfortable work of becoming better." Because growth requires something painful. It requires admitting, "I might be wrong," and ego hates that sentence. Ego would rather lose relationships than lose pride. Ego would rather repeat toxic patterns than face self-reflection. And the saddest part, they don't even realize they're stuck. They think consistency is strength. But stagnation can look like consistency. Let me ask you something deeper. If you've been like this for 10 years and the same problems keep happening, the same arguments, the same people leaving, at what point does "that's just who I am" become "this is why my life doesn't change"? Growth is not betrayal of self. It's refinement of self. You are not betraying your personality by becoming calmer. You are not betraying your authenticity by learning patience. You are not betraying your strength by apologizing. You are evolving, and evolution is uncomfortable because it means the old version of you has to die quietly, and not everyone is brave enough to let their old self go. So they cling to it, they defend it, they protect it, and they call it identity. But identity is not meant to be a prison. It's meant to be a foundation, and foundations are built, not born finished. The strongest people I've ever seen are the ones who can say, "I used to be like that. I was wrong. I'm working on it." That sentence requires more strength than any defensive "this is just me" ever will. Because real confidence is not rigid. It's flexible, and flexibility is what keeps you growing. Let's go deeper. Have you ever noticed something? Some people would rather lose a relationship than admit they were wrong. They will argue, deflect, minimize, blame, anything except say, "You're right, I need to work on that." Why? Because for them, being corrected feels like being attacked. And when identity is fragile, feedback feels like disrespect. So instead of listening, they protect their ego. Here's the hard truth. Ego would rather be right than be better. It would rather win the argument than win the relationship. It would rather defend a flaw than confront it. When someone says, "That's just who I am," often what they're really saying is, "If I admit this is wrong, I have to face the fact that I've been hurting people." And that realization is heavy. It means replaying conversations. It means remembering moments you dismissed someone's feelings. It means accepting that maybe you weren't misunderstood. Maybe you were careless, and that's painful. So instead of processing the pain, they shut the door. This is just me. But let me ask you something honest. If who you are constantly creates tension, pushes people away, and keeps repeating the same problems, is that authenticity or is that avoidance? Real self-awareness is not just knowing your strengths. It's confronting your patterns. It's asking yourself, why do I react like that? Why do I shut down? Why do I explode? Why do I refuse to apologize? And most importantly, who taught me that this behavior was acceptable? Because a lot of what people call personality is actually unhealed survival. Maybe they grew up in chaos. Maybe they were never corrected. Maybe they were never safe enough to admit fault. But adulthood gives you something powerful. Choice. You don't get to blame your past forever. At some point, that's how I was raised. turns into, that's what I choose to continue. And that's where responsibility begins. Growth is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming accountable. And accountability feels like loss at first. Loss of pride, loss of control, loss of the illusion that you were always right. But what you gain? Better relationships, deeper trust, stronger character. The problem is, many people are more comfortable with familiar dysfunction than unfamiliar growth, because dysfunction feels predictable. Growth feels uncertain, and human beings often choose what's familiar over what's healthy, so they stay the same. Not because they can't change, but because changing requires humility, and humility is a muscle most people never train. The question is not, is this just who you are? The real question is, are you brave enough to become more than who you've been? Let me tell you something most people don't realize. Refusing to change doesn't destroy your life loudly. It destroys it quietly, not in one dramatic explosion, but in small repeated losses. A friend who slowly stops opening up, a partner who becomes emotionally distant, opportunities that stop coming, rooms that feel colder when you enter, and you sit there wondering, why does this keep happening to me? But you never ask, what if it's me? Growth is painful, but stagnation is expensive, and the price is always paid in relationships. When someone keeps saying, that's just who I am, what they don't see is this. People adjust at first. They tolerate. They excuse. They hope you'll grow. But over time, tolerance turns into exhaustion. Because love does not mean enduring repeated harm, and patience does not mean accepting disrespect. When you refuse to evolve, people stop confronting you, not because you're right, but because they're tired, and silence is dangerous. Silence means they've started detaching. You don't notice it immediately. You just feel something shift. Conversations get shorter. Laughter feels lighter. Presence feels optional. And you think, they changed. Maybe they did, but maybe they changed because you didn't. There is something deeply tragic about losing good people because you were too proud to improve. And pride is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers. You don't need to change. They're too sensitive. That's their problem. But growth requires a different voice, a quieter one, the one that says, what if I could handle this better? What if I responded differently? What if I'm not as self-aware as I think? Self-reflection is uncomfortable because it removes the villain. Sometimes there is no enemy, just your patterns. And patterns are powerful. They repeat until interrupted. You can't pray away a habit you refuse to confront. You can't demand better relationships while offering the same destructive behavior. Life doesn't reward stubborn identity. It rewards refinement. The strongest version of you is not the loudest, not the most offensive, not the most unapologetic. It's the one who can sit in discomfort without running from it. It's the one who can say, I see it now. Do you know how rare that is? Very. Because most people would rather protect their image than improve their character. But here's the truth. Your image might protect your pride, but your character determines your future. And the longer you say, this is just who I am, the more life quietly responds, then this is all you will ever be. And that is the real cost. Let's confront the fear underneath all of this. Change doesn't just feel uncomfortable. For some people, it feels like death. Because when you've behaved a certain way for years, when your reactions, your tone, your defense mechanisms have been with you for so long, they don't feel like habits anymore. They feel like you. So when someone suggests you need to change, it doesn't register as improve this behavior. It registers as erase yourself. And that's terrifying. If you've always been the strong one, how do you admit you've been harsh? If you've always been the honest one, how do you admit you've been cruel? If you've always been the independent one, how do you admit you push people away? Changing means questioning the story you've told yourself about who you are. And humans cling to identity. even when it's damaging. Because identity gives stability. Even unhealthy stability feels safer than unknown growth. But here's the truth no one says clearly. You are not your coping mechanisms. You are not your trauma responses. You are not your worst reactions. Those were strategies, and strategies are allowed to expire. Some people learned to be aggressive because softness wasn't safe. Some learned to shut down because speaking up wasn't heard. Some learned to dominate because vulnerability felt dangerous. But what protected you in one season can sabotage you in another, and maturity is recognizing when a survival tool has turned into a relational weapon. Growth doesn't mean losing yourself. It means shedding the armor you no longer need. It means upgrading your responses. It means saying, I don't want to keep hurting people just because this feels familiar. Familiar is not always healthy. Comfortable is not always right. And just because something feels natural doesn't mean it's aligned. There's a difference between authenticity and emotional laziness. Authenticity says, this is who I am at my core, and I'm committed to refining myself. Emotional laziness says, accept me as I am, even if I refuse to evolve. But real strength is being able to outgrow yourself, to look at an older version of you and say, I understand why you were like that, but we're not staying there. That is power, not defensiveness, not rigidity, evolution. You don't betray yourself by changing. You betray your potential by refusing to. And the person you're afraid of losing might be the very version that's keeping you small. Let's bring this home. You've probably seen it happen. Someone says, this is just who I am, and the people around them quietly start leaving. Not in anger, not in revenge, but because life doesn't wait for excuses. Time moves, people evolve, opportunities pass, and yet the person who refuses to change remains frozen, thinking they are strong, when in reality they are trapped. Here's the truth. Your identity is not an excuse. Your past is not a shield. Your flaws are not a justification. You are not born like this in a way that cannot improve. Every day you wake up, you are given the chance to refine yourself, to confront your ego, to repair your relationships, to act differently, consciously, intentionally. Growth is uncomfortable. It asks you to admit mistakes. It asks you to apologize. It asks you to walk into fear. And yes, it asks you to let go of parts of yourself you thought were permanent, but staying the same feels safe only in the short term. Long term, it costs everything. The trust of people who mattered, the respect of those who counted, the love that could have held you, the life you could have built. There is power in admitting, I'm not perfect. I can do better. I will try. It is quiet power. It is enduring power. It is the kind of power that changes your trajectory without announcing it. So the next time you hear someone, or even yourself, say, this is just who I am, ask yourself, is this truth? Or is this fear disguised as comfort? Because fear will tell you, stay the same, defend your ego, protect your habits. But courage will whisper, look at yourself honestly, face what hurts you and others, refuse to stay stuck. And remember this, life does not owe you forgiveness for refusing to grow. Life does not wait for people to become comfortable. Life rewards those who evolve. Change is not betrayal. Change is not weakness. Change is mastery. The strongest, most fulfilled people I've ever met are not those who never falter. They are the ones who have looked at their flaws, faced them honestly, and chosen to rise above them. So ask yourself, do you want to stay who you've always been? Or do you want to become who you are capable of being? Because that choice, every day, every moment, is yours. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize it wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable, but it was worth it.